Hi, I'm Chance,
And I'm Sarah Catherine,
and this is Conservation Connection.
presented by Last Chance Endeavors.
We run a wildlife education nonprofit focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week here on Conservation Connection, we do just that by introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day around the country.
We talk to professionals in the world of conservation science and wildlife management and ask them about their career,
Their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
Join us each week to discover just how these dedicated people are working to protect our planet. Alrighty guys, welcome to another episode of Conservation Connection. We are here in our hometown of Columbus, Georgia. We're very excited to sit down with Paige Swift, who is the executive director of the Nature Now Film Festival. And we're going to talk about some of the awesome things that are coming up with Nature Now.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
We're super glad we get to sit down with you before the film festival and just kind of get an idea for us and for our listeners of what the film festival is. So why don't we start there? What is Nature Now and when did it start?
So Nature Now is a registered 501c3 nonprofit, and we focus on pretty much environmental education in a lot of different aspects, but mostly through the power of film. I think that environmental films and documentaries are a really great way to get people to think about things or learn things in different ways without the audience feeling like they're being lectured. And so we just organize a film festival that's got a lot of different film blocks and special guests and filmmakers to talk about different topics. This year we have 10 different film blocks to do exactly that.
That's awesome. So where are you sourcing your films from? Like, how do you find the documentaries that you want to show here at Nature Now?
Really from all over the place, but I have to give credit and a shout out to the Wild and Scenic Film Festival that's out in Nevada City, California. It's one of the bigger environmental film festivals in the country. There's a huge one in Washington, D.C., but I am almost intimidated to even go to that one. It's all over D.C. It lasts a week. It's Smithsonian and
Wow.
I think American University and Jane Goodall. I mean, fangirl, I would love that, but it's kind of overwhelming. But Wild and Scenic is in Nevada City, California, and they started when they had the Yuba River classified under an Environmental Protection Act signed by Jimmy Carter called the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. So the Yuba is protected, and Circle, which is a river nonprofit organization out there, started it by celebrating that thing, and they called it the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. And so it's kind of just an afterthought, but it got really popular and grew over the years. And this next year will be its 21st year. They started from that, a touring program where other nonprofits around the country can buy film package licensing and have their own little mini Wild and Scenic event. So that was originally where I went. And for years, I contracted with them. It's a contract and it's branded and all that. Wild and Scenic on tour in 2017, 2018, 2019. By 2018, we were at the Columbus State University Riverside Theater Complex downtown, and it was 3 days. I did custom curated film content, multiple blocks, special guests. It was like a mini version of what they do, modeled on the flagship festival. And it was the biggest on-tour event in the United States in our second year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And
That's just kind of cool. 2 years to be the biggest one in the country.
well, we have a lot of cool partnerships here, which we can get into in a minute. But we've got these facilities where actually my team that kind of goes out there to scout films and get ideas said, he's like, our festival is actually almost kind of nicer in a way because of our facilities and our tech that we use, because that's a really chill, super laid back festival. I mean, for a trip, I would recommend going to Nevada City. It's a cool little mining town. The Yuba is gorgeous. I've never seen it, but that's what my team people who have
That's how they describe it.
That's what they say. The pictures, back it up. But it's a really cool experience. I love it and can't wait to go back. So anyway, we were the biggest one in 2018 and 2019. We even had a mountain bike champion from Nepal come in, and we were rolling. And it started to get a little confusing for people, especially with the internet. So they would Google Wild and Scenic, and there are lots of Wild and Scenic on tours around the country. that's cool because to me, it just gets the message out there, and that's what it's all about. It can also drive audience. So the main Wild and Scenic has 50 different Wild and Scenic on-tour events in a 100-mile radius around them.
Oh, wow.
It's not a competition. It just drives audience to them because if you go to one of the mini events, if you're into that kind of thing, you're like, wow, where can I get 5 days of this?
Right, yeah.
So, but the confusion and the branding, and then I started adding content from films I would find elsewhere from other festivals, word of mouth. And I am really close with the tour manager for Wild and Scenic. And we had this big powwow, and she said, you need to establish as your own film festival and feature films from Wild and Scenic and wherever else. And so they're my main source. Anybody that's interested in like hosting an on-tour thing, they can make it really easy for you. You just like buy a pre-curated deal. You have to use their branding. I mean, it's all like seamed up. It's like a film festival in a can, and they walk you through it and all that stuff. But they make it so easy. The majority of our content comes from them because the films are juried twice already. And that's the great thing about sourcing documentary film from other festivals, if they will do that, if they'll cooperate, because they already have a jury. It's just been kind of proofed, more or less, for
it's less work for you to do.
Absolutely. And this year, the majority of our stuff is Wild and Scenic. We've got a couple of blocks straight from them. We've got a film I licensed from Real Rock. That's another touring festival, so to speak. And it's pretty much just rock climbing. But it is a fabulous film. It's called Black Ice. And we have some of the guys from the climbing gym in the film that will be here. We have girls, too. 2 women and 2 men. And I'm super excited about them because that it'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It's an amazing story of changing lives.
That's awesome.
Southern Exposures is another film program that I source stuff from. My friend Kelly Marshall has a film residency program that people need to learn about, which hopefully they could come to the Doc Talk on Saturday morning that features a whole panel of filmmakers and producers.
I love that.
So, and then just indie stuff that I find. So it's
just
really
being plugged into the network of independent documentary filmmakers. I'm sure you hear whispers of cool things that are coming up all the time.
So speaking to that, a really cool thing happened accidentally this year. One of our presenting sponsors, Georgia Power, and their lake resources manager is a guy named Dawson Ingram, and he's a big outdoor enthusiast. He hunts, he fishes, he's their lake resources, so he's dealing with water conservation issues and their public recreation stuff for Georgia Power. And he just kind of like surprised me short notice and said, you need to see this film and you need to meet this guy that narrates the film. The film is called Dogmen. It's produced by OnX Hunt, who also have 2 other land navigation apps. And the guy's name is Darrell Smith, and he has a podcast called Sporting Life Notebook. So he set up this meeting, and I don't even think I'd seen the film yet, but here's this guy, Darrell Smith, and I'm like, he's really engaging. And he's like, thanks for showing our film at the festival. And I was like, okay. And I was like, better watch that film now. It was the best happy accident, and I cannot thank Dawson enough. I texted him yesterday because Darrell Smith radiates charisma. He is a rising star, I think, in the world of outdoor recreation. And I don't know, I can't go on enough about him, but he will be here. He is so good with crowds and people and charismatic that I actually have him being an MC opening some of the film blocks.
That's awesome.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, we're hoping to have him on the show. So hopefully, if you're listening, which obviously you are, you will be hearing him a few episodes from now. So we've heard some about like the past 5-6 years of your history and getting into nature now and how that started. But what led you to be interested in this? Did you have like a passion for nature, a passion for directing film, or like how did this happen?
That's a really good question. I actually went to school for film production. I went to the Grady College of Journalism at UGA, which I didn't realize at the time what a reputation it has. They do the Peabody Awards and all that. And then I went straight to Atlanta, like everybody, the mass exodus of all the J School graduates, and just trying to break into the film industry outside of a studio or an established production company that has staff is very hard. And I ended up getting a job with a corporate production house called Jack Morton Productions. And they did corporate conferences and, training videos and, kind of like corporate commercials and very corporate. I keep saying that word, which equals not real exciting. But anyway, they ended up cutting their staff. I mean, it was my first experience, go on set. Like we did this training video for UPS and still to this day, that little device that you have to sign?
Mm-hmm.
It's called a dyad. I worked on the training video for the first dyads when they came out at UPS.
Yeah.
And I love catching the UPS guy and I'm like, that's a dyad. And he's like, how do you know that? And I said, did you have to watch a video to learn how to use that? And yeah. It's like, was there a crazy professor and a bunch of smoke in a lab? And he was like, yes. It's like, I worked on that. And that was like 30 years ago, which dates me a little.
Wow.
So that kind of stuff. So at least it got me on set, learning set protocols and positions and all that. And then they cut their staff in half, like nationally. So when you're a new hire, you're one of the first to go. And a sound guy that I had gotten to know on the sets, who's super sharp and like already like reputation up here in the industry, called me and was like, what kind of car do you drive? Was the first question he asked. And I had a Trooper, remember Isuzu Troopers?
Mm-hmm.
I had one of the boxy ones. And
Nice.
It's also like, what's the right answer here?
yeah. Well, it was a stick shift even. But I told him that, and he was like, perfect. Do you want to work for me? I need somebody that can carry equipment around and go to sets and manage script, teleprompter stuff. So I ended up working for him for years and actually managed his prompter business. And we had like 5 different prompter operators.
Wow.
We worked all kinds of major league things. I mean, national commercials. My favorite was the sportscasting stuff. Because live sports like make grown people cry in the studio trucks. Like people wig out, but it's kind of exciting. And
do you thrive on chaos? Because it feels a little bit like you love chaos.
Well, you think I'm doing this, like what do you think this job is? But anyway, so like I worked for the BBC during the Olympics in their studio for their primetime broadcast. And that was a blast because we would play around in off time and I'd like put up scripts for the British and Scottish people and get them to try to talk like rednecks. It was really hard for them to do. They don't understand like the southern diphthong, like hey yelp,
Yeah.
Yep.
So I digress. But so I worked for Mike forever, and then I got married, had children, and took pretty much. You can't do that life with kids if you don't have a certain support structure because it's short notice. You have to travel. It could be 17-hour days. I mean, it's just there's no structure. There's a weird structure, but it's unpredictable. And so you have to be able to operate on short notice and wing it and, not get flustered by that. But anyway, so I was kind of out of it for about 15 years and then got divorced about 10 years ago and wanted to go back to work. I've always liked working. I've worked since I was 15 and called Mike up. I was like, what do you got? Because I was able to get back up to Atlanta and worked on like the Bessie Smith story that Queen Latifah did, which was really cool. Still, it was kind of inconsistent. And then it's just the industry had changed a lot, right? And so it was great and everything, but I needed something more steady. So in a short sequence to explain this, I was approached by a couple of local gentlemen on the board of a land trust. Didn't know what that was, but their whole point was, people in town because I used to be a very horsey, hunting, like outdoorsy person. And they were like, people that own the big farms or that would be interested in this. And we worked a lot with the Nature Conservancy and land protection around the Army and all that. And I did that for about 3 years and I started organizing events. And through the events that I organized, I had a really cool dinner party for an author who wrote a book. It was called Engineering Eden. And you should look it up. It's a crazy story. A farm kid came back from Vietnam and wanted to bounce, and find himself. And so he went out west with a buddy, and they were in either Yosemite or Yellowstone, but wherever they were camping out, and they got mauled by a grizzly bear, and it killed him. And in the autopsy, the report was that the bear didn't have any teeth. He was so old, he had no teeth, and so they were just clawed to death, which is very grisly and gruesome. an attorney approached the family and said, listen, this bear never would have been alive in the natural wild, but because Yosemite had been feeding the grizzlies, back in the 50s and 60s, there also wasn't any really forethought maybe or after, I don't know what you would call that thought process, but there wasn't one. And they were entertaining tourists by feeding the grizzlies. They would let the grizzlies openly dine out of the trash and people would watch them. And because of that, a bear that would naturally have just died because he couldn't hunt or provide for himself, they could sustain. They took it, I think it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won.
Wow.
And so that's what the book was about. So this guy's here. We do a dinner. I had a grizzly bear themed dinner, and he did a reading and a book signing, and it was super fun. And he said, look, if this is your jam, if you're good at putting on events, you need to come to this film festival in my hometown in Nevada City. I was like, what? I used to work in film, but I don't think I've ever been to a film festival. And he was like, trust me. So I started talking to their staff, and I went, and that's when the light bulb went off.
Yeah.
Because he said they had this touring program, and that was Wild and Scenic. So that was January of 2017. I started process of putting that on. I didn't think I'd really thought about modeling it necessarily on multiple days because my board of directors at that land trust all did not have a clue what film festivals were, most of them.
Yeah.
But they were like, cool, let's try it. And then they kind of changed the job positions, structures. I don't really remember, but my position got outsourced, I think, to a contractor in Atlanta. So I got hired by another nonprofit, Trees Columbus, to basically run that festival because all the environmental nonprofits were so excited about it, right? And then I was like, oh, no, it's not happening now. And then the supporter, it was a trustee with a discretionary fund. He was like, yes, it is. I got you. And that was a miraculous thing. And he's been a great supporter for a while.
One of the things that I'm pulling out of your story as we're talking is the importance of networking and just being open to opportunities and saying, sure, I don't know what that is, but I would love to go fly across the country and experience this film festival because it might be something that I'm interested in or can replicate.
That is absolutely me. That is just my personality. And also because of my experience in AV production, which are these big live shows, usually for conferences or like pharmaceutical launches, stuff like that. That's basically what this is. It's just structured around environmental documentary film,
right, with
guest speakers instead of keynote speakers or the CEO, giving state of the corp, stuff.
Right. And that's, if you've listened to the show for probably more than 3 episodes, you've heard us say it because that is a great example of how taking a skill set from one walk of life, you can take that exact identical skill set and use it to help the planet. Right. So this AV background you have of putting on big live events for corporate groups is the exact same skills that you're using to make Nature Now happen. And that event is changing lives. It's changing how people think about and see the environment.
It's really highly organized chaos. And it is not for everyone because it's live. You're rolling. You have to have all these shot lists. You have to have a crew. You have to have all these positions filled and ticket organization, logistics, volunteers. The travel for these people we bring in really cooked me last year. I had a blind kayaker, the first one to ever kayak the Colorado, and he obviously needed special assistance at airports. Didn't get picked up in Detroit, stranded.
Oh, no.
For hours. And I was on the phone for 4 hours with Delta. It was so upsetting to me. And I think I even cried at one point. And then when they did get him, they were rude to him and they ran him into like a stanchion, getting him there. Delta ended up making it right. But I'm still bothered by that because he called me and he was like, no need to be rude to me. I'm just blind. I'm not dumb.
Right.
And I hear your tone of voice. I pick up on things. But he's amazing and he's coming back, y'all. He's coming back and he had such an awesome time here with our kayaking community. And we have Team River Runner here and he's deeply involved with them. His name is Lonnie Bedwell and his film is called The Long River Home and it is specifically about Team River Runner. And the Hargroves, their family just took him in and they got him on the river and he taught them how to call to a blind kayaker. So they're doing a blind kayaking clinic for vision impaired people. And they're bringing in, I think, 3 or 4 Team River Runner blind veterans.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday morning. It's on the schedule. Everything we're talking about is on a schedule on our website. *, subject to change. From time to time, things happen. So if anybody's into this or you're coming, just check it daily because there's tweaks happen. That's live shows.
Highly organized chaos, right? It changes.
Good chaos, good trouble.
What is the link to y'all's website so I can drop it in the show notes?
It's watchnaturenow.org is our website.
So speaking of the impact that these documentaries can have, what do you see as the impact of these documentaries from the film festival, from just documentaries like this in general? From our short day and a half of knowing you, we've gotten to hear you talk about some of the events that y'all have going on and the things that you want to do, showing the impact of plastics and how people see these films and then go home and are like, wow, I need to reduce my use of plastics and here's how I can do it. So what is the impact that you've seen or that you think documentaries like this have?
One thing, and we hope to capture this better this year with some camera guys and some audio, catching sound bites from people, because that is my favorite. I usually can only capture those through a survey or a post-event email, but what people say is amazing. And one of the top things that I hear, people come out and they're like, wow, are the films always this good? And I try to ensure that answer is always yes. Like I explained earlier, the process of selecting them from other festivals, juried process. Another thing is just education or sort of opening people's eyes. Like there's a really cool Jeff Bridges short, and it is called Open Your Eyes. And he basically is like, every molecule of plastic that exists since it was invented still exists and will always exist. Even if it's recyclable, It never breaks down. And I think that is heavy. But the dude, it's the dude. So he's saying it. It's a little bit more inspiring. But, 1 year we showed a film called Straws, and I got an email from a mom, and she was like, we were picking up trash all the way back to the car when we left the festival. I called the school. I want them. It has curriculum attached to it. It had a whole program across North Carolina. The director was here, Linda Booker. You should look up that film. And Linda, she's great. But there were several restaurants that stopped just throwing straws on the table that after the festival, from either the owners being in the audience or customers bringing it up. And now a lot of them are kind of forgotten, I've noticed. And so maybe
it takes consistent reminding to maintain change in action.
The COVID year, that was, wow. And we can talk about that separately, but learning what a pangolin is, that it's the most highly trafficked endangered animal in the world, and they're so cute. They're little scaly dragons.
They walk like little tiny old men.
And they're I'm so glad y'all know what a pangolin is, because I love them so much, and I wanted a pangolin girl to come here, but it's a challenge. These filmmakers are sometimes hard to get because they do remote stuff, because the environment in documentary, it's very run and gun. To me, it's very similar to journalism. But Terrapin Beer Company have a really amazing sustainability awareness and actions that they do as a business. And they have been coming to this festival since 2019. They're coming back. They did a thing we call Terrapin Talk, and it's all about small business sustainability. I don't know. I don't really get to attend almost anything that we put on because I've got a headset on with 7-10 people talking in it and just running things. Yeah, running things. Well, it's chaos in my head, but I think the event has always run very smoothly because of the team that we have. But Kat Shane, and there's an app called Can I Recycle This? Between her and Dustin Watts, who's the president of Terrapin, he'll be here. They will blow your mind. They'll talk about what they're doing over in Athens with community-driven sustainability. And I'll let them cover that, but y'all, people need to come hear it, because I know there's an interest in our community. Or if you're from somewhere else, if you're from Auburn or Opelika or LaGrange, it's doable. And they demonstrate that the community, you don't have to just wait for your municipalities to come up with this, because, they're overstrapped. And we're not the Pacific Northwest. We're in a totally different sort of political culture. Yeah.
I am just absolutely excited to sit down with some of these people that are coming to Nature Now and learn more about their stories and what they're trying to get across to these audiences, and to amplify their impact and the impact of Nature Now. I just cannot wait to hear what these episodes come out like. I think they're going to be really, really cool.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, because there's a lot of stuff. We have 10 blocks of films, 3 full days of things happening. Note, all the most of the film blocks screen twice. I strongly advise that you study the schedule because choices will have to be made. And if Friday night you can't be there for this exciting film block with adventure films, the oldest hiker to do the AT at 83.
Oh my gosh.
His name is Nimblewill Nomad. He's got
wonderful name.
Something from Lord of the Rings. And
Just Gandalf hiking through the woods.
white flowing hair and a beard. He's coming. He'll be on stage. He lives in Sylacauga, Alabama.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
wow. That's
Yeah.
incredible. We should talk to him because that's a dream of mine is to through hike.
His handler, they're park rangers or something, but he's got a guy that's like, I didn't know that we would get press calls from Germany. This was like New York Times front page news in
Wow.
November of 2019 when he did it. And yeah, this guy, Nathan Wright, is his manager, but he's from Columbus. He's a Columbus native. How about that?
That's
Wow.
crazy.
Mhm. So that stuff. But if you can't be there Friday, sad, you'll miss out. FOMO. A lot of the film blocks screen twice. So if you want to do something that happens and then you could catch that and then still go see a talk, right? And then whatever. Choices must be made.
Definitely. And if you miss someone, hopefully we interview them and you can hear them on the podcast.
Excellent point. This is very exciting. I cannot
We're
wait to
super
have y'all
excited.
there.
Yeah, we're so excited that this is happening where we live. We weren't able to attend last year. We had literally just moved to Columbus, so we're super excited to be involved this year.
A lot of our people that have kind of come to the table, same thing. It's
Yeah.
some of the younger natives that are coming back to be with family or whatever. And like, I met a girl recently and she's like, I've been so homesick for Atlanta because she was there. And she's like, I love this. How can I help? And she has jumped in. Her name's Morgan Peak. You'll see her around the festival. A lady in Hogansville emailed me randomly last year and she's all major environmental enthusiast. And she's kind of like the same background that I've got. So she'll come
Awesome.
and be helping me run things. And then Mike Filosa, the audio guy that I worked for in Atlanta, Emmy nominated, like Cobra Kai. He'll be at that Doc Talk panel. If you're interested in filmmaking, do not miss Saturday morning. I have got a dope panel of people to talk about how they got into it, what they've been doing, and the awards that they've been winning, nominations from LA, from New York,
Wow.
Atlanta. Don't miss it. If you want to talk film, you need to come get educated.
Yep.
They're good.
That's awesome. I love it. And we will drop the link to your website and we'll be getting this out to our audience. So hopefully some of them will attend or be able to find out more information about y'all.
Yeah, hit the website. We have social media. I've got people helping me with that, thankfully. And questions, info at Watch Nature Now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
We'd love to hear from you. So if you want to reach out, go to our website, lastchanceendeavors.com/contact and shoot us an email.
We love questions from our listeners, so if you heard something that you want to know more about, be sure to let us know.
If you've got a minute to spare, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts will help other conservation-minded people find the show. We'd really appreciate it.
A big thanks to the people working to protect our planet, and a big thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week.